our view of money, okay? Some of us, we didn't grow up with money, or we grew up thinking about money, but in different ways. Um, how we handle money, what we do with it varies. The way you handle money and the way you handle money, the way you handle money, the way I handle money, it's all gonna be different because we grew up with different thoughts on it, right? Our parents, some of us had money, some of us didn't have money, some of us struggled, some of us didn't. But no matter how you grew up, we all heard about this thing called money, and we are all, trying to manage it. I personally, I didn't grow up in a house that was focused on handling money well. We didn't save. We weren't big savers. My parents never put money away for, college or anything like that. I don't begrudge them for it. It was just they just didn't. Um, Sometimes as quickly as it came, it would go. That's just so I grew up with that mindset as well. I'm not a really good natural saver. I'm a really good spender. And that gets us into this topic of there are two ways that people tend to approach money. Okay. Either as a spender or a saver. And if you're married, chances are one of you's a spender and one of you's a saver. But some marriages can have both spenders and some marriages can have both savers. It just kind of varies. In our home, when we first got married, I was the spender. I love spending money, especially on going out to eat. Not on item. Well, maybe on tech and stuff. I do like that. Lacey was the saver. That girl, she saved for everything. Like, just everything she had, she saved for and she worked hard for. I was more about here living in the moment. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to enjoy myself. I wanted to I work hard for this money. I wanna go to Chipotle, you know? Lacey is like, "I can eat popcorn and baked potatoes for the rest of my life and be perfectly happy." I am not that person, right? So when we first got married, there was a lot of intense moments of discussion happening. And as I thought about it, this is kind of where we've landed. Spenders, they chomp at the bit to go and buy something, right? They just that money that they get coming in from tax return or from for the extra little hours they worked, they're like, I am gonna go buy something with this, right? They tend to say, and this was my thought process, they tend to say, it'll be okay, we'll figure it out. Right? That's kind of how spenders approach money. They're always gonna try to figure out what to do to make sure what they want happens, right? Welcome. You guys aren't too late. We're just starting. Um, Spenders, they tend to be carefree and happy-go-lucky, right? They tend to, life's a peach and everything's good. We're all gonna make it. Everyone's happy. They sit they take the passage of "take no thought for tomorrow" literally. They're very literal in that passage. Take no thought for tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna go spend my money. Jesus will work it out later, right? They might try to buy a boat when that tax return hits, right? They're not thinking about I might need money for later. They're saying, okay, right now I have money, let's go. They tend towards, now this is as a spender, okay? Well, a recovering spender. They tend towards recklessness. Not saying they're reckless, but they tend towards this thought process of, I want to do what I want to do right now with my money. And in the future me will figure it out later, right? I don't know if any of you relate to that. They want a quick return on their investment and they're open to taking risks. It's most spenders that I know. um, they may, be seen as irresponsible, but they bring energy and optimism to financial decisions, right? They're like, "We'll figure it out. We'll fix this." Now, savers, on the other hand, this is where Lacey was for a long time. Savers, overly cautious. They bring stability and foresight. They kinda I Lacey was like my anchor for a long time. She's like, "Yeah, but you forgot about this bill. You forgot about this upcoming thing. You forgot about that. You can't just go and spend all the money we have right now because we have bills to pay. We have things that you're not thinking of right now." So Lacey was very much, cautious with money, right? Savers are cautious with money. They get heart palpitations when you say, "I have to spend money," right? They get like, "Oh man, no, goodness gracious." They see money as a safety net, right? And they hold on to assets and they hold on to their money at all costs. They approach money sometimes as something to fear, right? A lot of us, we approach money fearfully. because we're scared we're gonna run out. We're scared there's not gonna be enough. We're scared of tomorrow. So savers really they hold on to it. Sometimes out of fear. I'm not saying everyone that's a saver is fearful, but there's a tendency there. They take the passage of count all the costs, literally. That's their favorite passage. They want to lock money away for years, spending only money in dire emergency circumstances. They tend towards fears we already mentioned. Not they're not fearful, but they tend towards that way. Believes security is a good thing and your money will grow over time. So instead of taking big risks, they're about security and safety nets. Now going through this, where would you guys say you land? Just out of curiosity. There's no right or wrong. I'm just curious. You're a spender? He's a saver? What about you? Spender? In between? Okay, good, good. So there's differences here, but no matter who you are, you're going to land either on one side or the other or somewhere in the middle. No, neither side is bad. They just have different approaches to money. And how we approach these topics or how we approach money affects how and whether or not budgeting becomes a thing that we do, right? We have to begin to rethink how we handle finances. No matter, I mean, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Dave Ramsey. We kind of talked about him last week. There are people that, they're teachers. They're not big risk takers. They went and taught public school for 40 years and they retire a millionaire. It's like, how did that happen? Chances are they were pretty good savers, right? They were people that knew how to take their money that they get, live below their means, put it towards investments and let it grow. I've known a couple of teachers. I knew a tennis coach that was a millionaire teaching high school tennis. Like, how do you do that? He was a saver. He learned how to take his money and let it grow. And every year he would come in and take care of his CDs, and that's the only investment tool he ever used. Then I've known millionaires that they were business owners. They took all the risk, right? So it's either way, wherever you land, you're going to approach money differently, and either way is okay. You just have to learn how to manage it. Um, as we're talking about rethinking how we handle money, that same dollar that you can spend or save, you can begin to use to build, right? Like we talked about last week, money is nothing more than a nail and a hammer, right? It can build something. It's not something to just go out and spend or just to save, but at some point our relationship with money has to grow to this place where it's like, okay, I have X amount of dollars. How can I begin to grow this, right? And we'll get there. Um we have to learn to put our money to work for us, is I guess the thought I'm trying to get across. There is a great book. If you guys want a good resource, something to read, if you guys are readers, there is a book called The Richest Man in Babylon, right? Now, biblically, we know Babylon's not the place we want to land, but it's an old book, but he talks about how it's a fictional story about how a guy went from the lowest place in the society to the best using just common sense and learning how to put his money to work for him. One of the first lessons was start thy purse to fattening, and what it meant is save at least 10% of all you earn, right? Now, these aren't rules, we're not really gonna focus on these, but, like, this is just a really good resource if you guys wanna learn how to handle and manage money. Pay yourself first, and before you spend on anything else, invest it, right? Put 10% of, all you earn into either savings or investing to allow it to grow. Control thy expenditures, live below your means, right? We live in a society where people will get on social media and gripe and complain and have all these problems about money, and then they're texting on their brand new iPhone. And it's like, come on, where's the problem at, right? Or they'll have a brand new car every 6 months or a year or whatever, and yet they're complaining about money. And a lot of our culture, like we talked about last week, is focused on living not below our means, but keeping up with what everyone else seems to be saying and posting and doing, right? So we have to learn to handle that. Make thy gold multiply. Invest your savings wisely. We'll get into investments on the fourth lesson, but learn to let that money that you're saving grow a little bit to keep track with inflation or to keep track with your personal goals, right? Guard thy treasure from loss. Avoid investments that sound too good to be true. Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, all that stuff. Be careful. Number five, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. Get to a place where you can earn your home, right? Not earn, own your home instead of renting, right? It's not a hard and fast rule by any means. You can do everything you want renting. It's not a problem, but a home at some point becomes an investment. It becomes something that can actually make you money at some point. Sixth lesson, ensure a future income. Plan and invest for retirement and emergencies, right? So a lot of people, like we mentioned last week, they get into their retirement age and they tell themselves, "Hey, I'm going to keep working. I can do this. I don't need to save anything. I'm just going to keep working until I'm 75 or 70 or whatever." Well, statistically speaking, they either get burnt out, they get hurt, something happens, and they don't usually meet their retirement age because life happens. So you could either be spending all that money now and just living the good life, or like we did in rule number one, you can start saving that money, allowing it to grow for you, allowing it to build so that when you hit a retirement age, you're not having to fully rely on social security, but you can have that as a supplement to what you were able to save over the years. Does that make sense? Ultimately what we're getting at is this, and it's really simple. It's not anything that's, life changing by any means. You need a plan. You need a plan. Your goal and my goal and everyone's goal in here is going to look different. Okay. What you want to accomplish, what you want to have is going to look different. Maddie's goal is going to be different than Sister Hugh's goal. You guys are just going to have different goals when it comes to finances. And so that's why it's kind of hard to say, there's a hard and fast rule to all of this. There's really not. It really boils down to what is your goals. Now there are some things that I know that I think we can benefit from as we go through this, but regardless of what your goal is, you need a plan. And part of that plan is something as simple as the budget that we all have. Whether you're a spender or a saver, you should have a plan of action to begin to grow that money, to begin to build something. A lot of us, historically, we live paycheck to paycheck. Like I said last week, we get to this place where, we know exactly what's coming in. And by the time we get to that next paycheck, maybe the day or two before, it's like, oh man, I have to eat some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because I ran out of money. It doesn't have to be this way if you can begin to put a plan of action into place where you're budgeting your money, you're using that cash system that we talked about last week, and you're allowing you're living below your means. Does that make sense? Um, Whatever your final goal is, it's going to look different, but you need a plan to get there. So if you're married, okay, if you're married, here's the challenge. Discuss how you handle money with your spouse, right? Discuss it with them. Hey, I'm a spender. What are you? Okay, what are your tendencies with money? Try to learn how each other handles money, because what can happen is it takes away all the questions of who and what that person is first off, but it also helps you guys figure out how can we work together based on who you are and who I am to grow our money, right? My wife and I for a long time, her big thing was she wanted money for retirement. That was her big concern in life was, I want money put away for retirement. And I'm like, that's great. I want money to go and buy coffee right now. So how do we blend this, right? Like what can we do? So what we decided to do is we would put X amount of dollars away every month for retirement, and we would give what we called it was a blow money or a fun money account, where every month we would put 40 or 50 bucks each into this little envelope, and that was our spending money for the month, right? Now that was 8 years ago. 50 bucks went a lot longer, right? But like now it is what it is. But we found a way to blend our approaches to money to get us to a place where we both were getting what we wanted out of our finances. It's no longer a war, a tussle. It's no longer the spend, save discussion. It's like, okay, how can we blend this? If you're single, okay, if you're single, have the discussion with yourself. Okay, who am I? What are my goals with my money? Right? Single people tend to have this. It's you see a guy. Yeah, this is a generalization, so forgive me. You know, sometimes when you're driving down the road, you see a guy and he's sitting there by himself, and he might have spiked hair. He has like a red Corvette. You know, he has. There's just this stereotype, and the first thought, man, that guy's probably single, doesn't have kids, or maybe he's divorced or something, right? Um, there's this thought that accompanies people when it comes to being alone. You have the ability to grow so much by yourself and together. Um, Okay, I took a rabbit trail I shouldn't take. I'm sorry. Um, get to the place if you're single and you're having to figure out how do you spend money. Have the discussion with yourself. Am I a spender? Okay, if I'm a spender, what can I back down spending so that I can start growing, right? If you're a saver, you're already probably saving a lot, but the problem is if you're a saver, you typically tend to be more conservative with how you're handling money, and your money's probably not growing at the pace that it could be growing. So those are discussions you have to have with yourself, and we'll get into the investing thing, lesson 4. So let's get back to budget, okay? Here's the plan. Here's how we get back to this. And this is the plan that I think for us right now is something it's something that will at least start putting milestones in your life as you begin this journey of budgeting and finances to start hitting some of these goals so as to start giving yourself some wins, right? We want to feel like we're winning a little bit. $1,000 emergency savings. We talked about this last week. Okay, why is it 1,000? It just seems to be a number that tires, you get all 4 tires fixed, that's about $1,000, right? You have a dishwasher go out, maybe about $1,000. Now some expenses are a little bit more, but there's something about that $1,000 number that just feels right for right now. For you, if you're already there, the next thing you need to work on is paying off all consumer debts, right? Debt is not bad necessarily. That's where I'm gonna divide myself from other people like Dave Ramsey, right? He's totally against consumer debts, totally against credit cards. Here's where, for me, and this is just me, okay? You guys have to figure out what it is for you. If you have a spending problem, credit cards are dangerous. If you are already overspending and you're overspent, and I say consumer debts, and you're like, oh, I got a lot of credit cards, that is a place where you need to, like, have this discussion with yourself. Okay, I might need to back off of this. I might need to, Dave Ramsey calls it plastic surgery. I might need to cut off these cards from my life because they're causing more damage than they are good, right? When it comes to credit card spending, I was just looking up some simple statistics today, and like we said last week, the average American household has $105,000 in debt. Okay. Um, Consumers spend 12 to 18% more when using credit cards instead of cash. In an auction experiment, participants were willing to pay up to 100% more. So if that thing was only worth 10, they were willing to pay 20. If it was worth 500, they were willing to pay 1,000. 100% more when using credit cards versus cash. They found a clear link between credit card use and higher spending on unhealthy or impulsive purchases. Story time. 2016. Wasn't sure who was going to get in office, right? Kind of worried about it. Hearing things in the news. Okay. I'm a gun-toting American. I didn't want the option of having my guns taken away. So Lacey and I, we go and purchase an AR-15. Um, Still the most dumb decision I've ever made. No idea why. We put it on credit. We paid it off. We didn't charge any interest, but that was an impulsive purchase. I tell my wife all the time, why did we buy that gun? I have shot it 2 times in 9 years, and I don't use it ever. It just sits and collects dust, right? But because we had the credit card there and because we were worried about something, we did this impulse buy, right? So that's where this danger is. Businesses report on average, the order is 15 to 20% higher when customers pay with cards instead of cash. What is this telling us? That little piece of plastic right here, this little guy, dangerous. And some of us might be in a situation where we're in this class right now because of our approach to money, right? Our approach with debit cards or credit cards. If you have found yourself in a pickle with debt, and as you've gone through the budget that we talked about last week, there's hope. One of the best tools to attack debt is called the debt snowball. You guys ever heard of the debt snowball? Okay. It is an amazing option in how we approach handling all of this debt and stuff. And I'm not saying you guys, I don't know your finances. You know your finances. All I know is statistics. And so statistics say, we might have some problems with debt here and there every once in a while. So I'm gonna create a slide real quick and pull over this picture because I didn't have a chance to finish this slideshow. So the debt snowball, if you are dealing with debt, the thought process is you need a win. You need a win in your life. So what you would do is you would write down all of your debts, vehicles, credit cards, personal loans, everything but your mortgage, basically. Okay. You'd write them all down, write the debt type, student loans, right? That's another one. Write down their balances. Okay, I owe $1,000 here, 500 here, 1,200 here, 4,000 here, 12,000 there. You make the monthly minimum payments. Okay, put all of your debts on monthly minimums. Doesn't matter how much interest you're being charged. It doesn't matter what you're scared of or whatever. Start paying the monthly minimum. Then here's where the snowball comes into place, right? Attack this I don't know what's a good idiom. Attack this like a I don't know. I can't think of a good little turn of phrase. Just attack it. Throw money at every dollar. Your Uber, right? Throw every extra tip you get on Ubering at this first debt. Get it knocked out. Okay. You are already making $25 a month minimum payments on it. So once this is gone, right? So once this $500 balance is gone, no more, you paid it off, cut up the card most likely, just get rid of it. You will then apply this $25 to this 50. So you've already increased your payment on this 50% just by taking this payment and putting it here now, right? You were already paying it.
I've heard about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one thing to talk about it and then trying to get the other person.
That's where this
That's the battle.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then you're bringing up a really good point. It is a battle. It's a discussion. You guys both couples have to be on the same page with this. Otherwise, one person's fighting and one person's spending. Not fighting meaning like fighting for getting out of debt, not like arguments to in marriage. Those things happen though. But whatever you can get, maybe have that discussion. Hey, this is very important to me. Let's help me figure this out. Have that discussion. It's something good to have. But you take this $25 and you apply it here. Now you're paying 75 bucks on this. Once again, attack it like a rabid squirrel. That came to mind.
Introducing this method, would you look at the one that has the highest interest rate and attack that one first?
Nope. You would purely base it off of balance. Because regardless, the interest difference over the months, and the goal here is to get it done quick, right? If you're spending 10 years to do it, that's a lot of interest over 10 years. But if you're attacking these $500 balances or these $1,200 or these $5,000 balances, whatever you have to attack, it should be taking 6 months, maybe a year. So the interest isn't going to be as bad, right? I guess it depends on how big the hole is, if that makes sense. Um, but once you start seeing these little wins, I'm telling you, your mindset shifts. You're like, I can do this. I can do anything. And when you're learning to handle money, you need wins. You need something in your spirit that's just like, "Oh, thank God. Like I'm finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel," right? I'm finally controlling my spending. I'm finally fixing some of these things that I'm having to. And ultimately, you're getting to a place where you can build a kingdom. And you're not having to like, "Oh, I wish I could give to this. I wish I could do that. Lord, I would love to do that." Well, you'll get to a place if you can follow these plans where it's like this becomes no issue, right? At some point, you can take that 475 a month that you got all your loans paid off. You're like, hey, I can give a $500 offering this month. I can give to a missionary this month. Whatever. That's just that's my heartbeat. That's how I approach it. You guys can do whatever you want with it. That's just me. Is this all making sense? Cool. Well, I hit the 30-minute timer 5 minutes ago. So I really appreciate you guys bearing with me. Um, uh, any questions? We're pretty much done for right now, but any questions on anything? Cool. Well, let's pray and then we'll call it a day. Amen. Father, I pray right now in the name of Jesus that you would continue to bless each and every person here, God. Bless their finances.